Hello humans, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, we shape and polish Ethiopian opal using a dremel. If that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing. Today we're going to be shaping this freaking massive piece of Ethiopian opal. It's got rainbows all over it. When we weigh it out, the beginning weight of it is 21.27 carats. The measurements are 23 millimeters by 16 millimeters by 14 millimeters, and when we shine a flashlight through this bad boy, you can see there is a gigantic gob of dirt on that one part, but the rest is super wicked clean. I mean, I'm gonna have to slice this one up. If you guys want to see how this stone ends up getting cut up, shaped, and polished into 3 beautiful cabs, keep on watching. So as I said previously, I want to cut this up into pieces, so I'm drawing a little oval on the top here. I'm going to slice that off, and then where that dirt goes through, I'm going to have to cut that in half. And I'd like to make 3 cabs out of this stone altogether, a big one, a little one, and a medium-sized one. And this is my dust sucker, by the way. I wanted to show you guys because I didn't show you my last video. I just kind of talked about it. So you can see that it has a kind of bendy straw type deal going off the top. And then one button is for lights and one button is the sucking part. So using my kind of circular Dremel bit here, something to keep in mind with these is that they take off a lot of carats. If you have something like Global Prospecting has, it's just going to cut right through nice and clean, you know, like Justin from Black Opal Direct has. Cuts right clean through. This piece isn't going to do that. So instead of losing like a millimeter of size on either side, you're going to be losing more like, depending on your skill, something around 3 or 4 millimeters. So you're losing multiple carats when you're slicing up a stone this big. Now I could have went for just one big old stone, but man, I would have lost so much, and it's just such a shame to keep a stone like this, the biggest that it can be, when you can get multiple beautiful stones out of it and make multiple people happy with this pattern, versus just making one rich person happy whenever they mosey around to buy your opal. Nobody's got money for a big opal, but we might have money for a couple small ones. So, as you can see, this piece has some dirt in the side, but it should make a good piece. And then we've got the big piece here, and then you guys saw the piece that came off the top. So I started out with the piece that came off the side of that other piece, and I originally planned on making it an oval, but I made a last second decision to turn it into a cushion cut, because I mean, who doesn't enjoy a good cushion cut? And I mean, I wanted to take the opportunity because it did have a nice square bottom on it, or rectangular rather. So I kind of just flattened out that rectangular part, took advantage of that dome, made a nice little cushion cut with it, and you know, I couldn't be more pleased with the way that this one turned out. You know, would have made a good oval too, but I would have lost more carats turning it into an oval than I would turning it into a cushion. And I mean, it's always good to make multiple shapes out of one big stone, especially if you're slicing it up. And then this is, you can see, just the rectangular piece. I'm just touching up the face of it. And then here I am working on the slice that came off the top. So this is the smallest piece, and the edges tapered quite a bit. So I started by taking down the edges to get a bit of thickness on it, and then I worked on flattening out the back and kind of creating a dome. Now, the dome area on this particular stone was the dirtiest part, so it was really important to bring in all the edges where I could see that it will make a clean piece once I take off the dirt. You know, not all opal you're going to be able to see in it like that, but with Ethiopian crystal opal you can see it very well. So I made a nice little cab out of it. You know, even the smallest stones can pack a wallop as far as beauty goes, and we all just are chasing that color, am I right? Size doesn't always matter with opal. And here I'm working on the biggest stone, and as you can see, there is that flatter part on the side of this where I cut off that other piece of opal that I turned into a cushion cut. And so I'm starting off by kind of bringing in the sides of the stone where it's flat there, kind of making it a nice ovular piece. It turned out a bit more circular than I thought it would, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. And you guys can see that this piece is freaking massive. I wish I had weighed out the individual rough pieces before I went into shaping them. Because now that I'm editing this, I'm like, man, I really wish I knew how big that piece was before I started shaping it. It turned into a just spectacular little finished piece. Big finished piece. But, you know, I don't know the size of the particular cutoff of the stone, which is a bit of a shame, you know, because I find great interest in that sort of thing. I was just too excited, and I had other things to do that day, and I was rushing just a bit. But you can see that there's a lot of dirt in this piece as well. The overall piece had a lot of dirt going all around it, and like these little pockets on it, because Ethiopian opal is, it's silica that leaked into volcanic pockets in the dirt. So that's why you get so many like nodular pieces with Ethiopian opal, and like Australian opal you get more like seams, because in Australia it leaks into the flat parts where the ground had cracked. In Ethiopia it's leaking into like these kind of round volcanic pockets, so it is different. But once I got this nice and clean, it turned out to be quite spectacular, quite large, as you could see here, and I'm just about to weigh them out. So at this stage, the big O is 6 carats, the rectangular piece is 2.25 carats, and the tiny is 0.9 carats. And altogether, it makes us 9.12 carats, so we'll see how much of that we end up actually saving. And now moving on to the Nova points. With something like this, when you're working on multiple stones at a time, it's easy to get impatient with the Nova points and end up with your stones having some scratches at the end. Now, a certain amount of scratching after the Nova points is totally normal and totally fine and will come off with the polishing process. But if you see that the scratches are rather deep, those are not going to come out. You're going to have to go all the way back to the black Nova point. So that's something that you should keep in mind. Now also, I could have dopped my stones here, but I'm not quite experienced enough with dopping Ethiopian to tell if basically if the stone is going to be okay after I've dopped it when it's wet, because there's so much going on with the stone. It's so fragile when it's full of water that I just didn't want to take any risks this time, but I might do that in the future. And I'm just doing my classic method of I start on the back, I make sure that the back is nice and polished, I'll rub it off on my piece of clothing that I'm wearing, and then I'll look at it, I'm like, okay, that looks like the black Nova point has done its job, and then I'll work on the edges. I'll run it around the edges one direction, like say the dome is pointing towards the dremel, and then I'll flip it back around so that the dome is facing the other way, and then I'll do the sides again so that they're nice and even and flat. Then I work on taking the stone and running the bit from the edge into the center, working my way around the stone, going from edge to center, and then I go circular motions all over the face, a bunch of circular motions, twisting it in my hand. If you're using a dopping stick, it's a lot easier, but I do find with this method of polishing, I will always hit all the pieces of the stone, and it doesn't really end up with super deep scratches that the polishing paste won't take off. But something to keep in mind, always, I know I've said it 1,000 times before, is that the black and the brown Nova point, you're still shaping on it. So if you see that you've got some lumpy, bumpy spots on your stone, don't worry. Just keep working on that little area. Touch up that spot that's looking lumpy and bumpy with your black and brown Nova point. And then when you think it's good enough, just keep moving on. So with these stones, I did end up on the biggest one. There was just a little bump, and maybe I'm just a perfectionist, but I was a little bit disappointed by that bump. But I went back and I worked on it again through the black Nova point, and so I went through the grits twice with the big one, and that probably also helped to give it a really good polish, because yeah, bigger stones obviously are going to take longer. You know, some people find that bigger stones are harder, some people find that littler stones are harder. I find medium stones are the easiest. But the thing about little stones is you are taking off more carats every second of the way on the dremel with the little pieces, and you have to really pay attention to make sure that you don't have those lumpy bumpies. With big stones, if you see lumpy bumpy spots, then it's like you keep working on it, you're like, okay, I think it's gone, and it's not gone, and you gotta keep working on it. It just takes more time and patience. You gotta have so much patience when working with opal. And from what I've heard, Ethiopian is the softest opal, so I mean, if you are more patient with Australian opal, Ethiopian opal might go a bit quicker for you. If you're impatient with Ethiopian opal, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You just gotta work on your patience. I've had to work on my patience with working on opal over the years, and I can tell you in the beginning I was not very patient with it. I would get frustrated. I'm like, oh man, this isn't perfect. I have to work on it again. No. And these are just normal things, you know, we all, I'm sure, go through it. You just gotta be like, okay, it's okay. And if you drop a stone, which we all will drop stones, when you get down on the ground to look for it, just be patient. Don't get stressed out, because I found when I drop a stone and I get stressed out about it, I'm more likely to spend more time looking for it and be frustrated and just be overall having a bad time. Whereas when I'm really calm about it, it's like it shows itself to me. It's like my eyes are clear, I can see the opal, I'm not blinded by my tears, if you know what I mean. So, it's just some things to think about. Also, if you're getting into dopping, there are many different kinds of sticks that you can use for dopping. You can even grab a stick from your yard. But after the Nova points, when they're wet, the big one is 5.39 carats, the tiny is 0.7 carats, and the rectangular piece is 1.9 carats. So you can see we did lose some. Overall, we're sitting at 8 carats at this point. So this is what they look like when they've dried out, and you can see there are still like some little scratches on it, and that's okay, that's normal. Those are not gonna come out necessarily in the Nova point. And we got 3 excellent stones here. I think my favorite is probably the rectangle, but the big one does have some honeycomb I'm trying to show off on the side there, and I ended up dopping them on some shish kebab sticks that I got from my local grocery store. And moving on to polishing, I do a similar method that I do by hand with the polishing. I work on the edges, kind of twist it around the edges, and then I work on the part that connects the dome to the side, and then kind of work in circular motions across the face, and then run in linear motions across the face and the edges, kind of hitting the sides as well, and then moving from the sides into the center. for this little one, it's really nice and flat, so it was pretty easy to make sure that I was covering all my surfaces. And when you're dopping like this, you will have to go through all of the grits and then take it off your dopping stick and then go back and do the backs. So I don't actually re-dop when I do the back of the stone, but when you're moving through the grits, it gets really slippery, and dopping them creates a anti-dropping solution so that you're not dropping it all the time. And I do apologize for my hand being in the way there, it's quite abrasive. But for the rectangular stone, I'm just running it from long end to long end, short end to short end, and then twisting it around, making sure that I get the corners of it. And like I was saying earlier about there are many sticks you can use for dopping, these are shish kebab skewers for like barbecuing. I have also gotten chopsticks and used chopsticks for it. You can use toothpicks, you can use like sticks that are made for candied apples. There's lots that you can do. You don't necessarily have to go out to an Opal shop and buy Opal specific dopping sticks. That might be a bit more pricey than just going to your local grocery store and getting some apple sticks or some toothpicks that you might already have on hand. And you know, dentists say that wooden toothpicks are bad for your teeth because they'll get splinters in your gums. So what should you use them for? Use them for opals, especially the teeny tinies. It's some great stuff. And to dissolve my glue when I'm done with my polishing of the opal, I let it sit in acetone. And so, again, you might get impatient letting it sit in the acetone. I know I did the first time. You get impatient with your acetone, dissolving the super glue. When you take it off of the dopping stick, you have a risk of chipping your stone. So you want to make sure that you let it sit in that acetone for like at least 10 minutes, and then you can pop it off. And there might still be some gunk on the back after you scrape it with your nail, and you just pop that stone right back in that acetone, and then you take it out and continue the process until all of that glue is gone. You might be scared about putting your Ethiopian opal in the acetone. It will absorb it, but something that you should know is if your opal is full of oil, you can soak it in acetone and it gets rid of the oil, and it's just nail polish remover. So we have a final weight here, guys. It is 4.91 on the big one, and the rectangle, my personal favorite, is 1.73 carats, and the tiny, which is also spectacular, is 0.62 carats, and I do have a good bracelet for that, and it's 7.26 carats overall. So when we look at the stone, this big one, there's a lot of colors going on, but you can see in a section of the stone, it's a little bit crystal clear, not much going on that part, but the other side is milky. So this is not because the stone is holding the water in it, this is because this is just how the stone is. And when you look at it from the kind of clearer part, there is a honeycomb thing going on that I could have cut it from that side. That's what I keep talking about. But I do feel like I did a great job by retaining the weight of it by shaping it in this way. And I really like the duotone of the stones, especially with the rectangle here. It's really awesome how it has the white side and the crystal side with the rectangle. And the rectangle has probably the brightest color of the three. You can catch the red, green, and the blue all at the same time, and it's just so bright and fantastic. And this is because I faced it the way that the stone showed the color originally, and it's just a great piece. And this is the back of the big one, by the way. And if you're wondering why it's hazy, or why they're all a little hazy, well, that's because of the acetone, and that'll happen. But when we do the math, the finished product The amount that we lost was about 14.02 carats. So we did lose a nice chunk of that opal, but keep in mind that we sliced it up, we lost carats that way, and then we shaped and polished them. So overall, I would consider this a big win in my books, and I hope that you guys enjoy the final pieces. But we have a giveaway today. And this is a really nice parcel of giveaway stones. If you want to win it, just guess how many carats this is overall. And I thought that I'd show off a couple of the stones for you guys. You know, something to get excited about. I don't always give away like the most spectacular stones on my channel. I try, but this is definitely gonna make you some good cabs. The piece that I just showed is probably more of a polisher-upper, but I tried to make this more of a cutter's parcel so that you can make some good ovals out of it. So please enter my giveaway. Tell me how many carats you think this is. Whoever is closest will win all these opals, and I'll just be like, hey, email me your address so that it's private and only I know where to send it and stuff. But yeah, I'd love to give these to somebody who would, you know, enjoy them. There's some great color here and some great cabs to be had. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one. If you are still here, please hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It would really mean a lot to me. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, anything at all. I almost always respond to them. Share this with a friend, just one friend. If you have a single friend, you could share this with them. They might like it, maybe. And I'll see you guys next time that I make a video. Later, guys.